Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. It's 1:02, and I don't want to miss any of the demo. So, Patrick, I'm just going to go ahead and give you control. Make presenter. There we go.
Can everybody see my screen?
Deep Carbon Observatory. Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Tetherless World Constellation is, just for some of us that don't know?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I am a senior software engineer at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And one of the things they do at RPI is they create what's called constellations. And so they bring together what they call the stars in a particular field, hence constellation.
Ah, hence the
Yeah.
constellation.
And so the Tetherless World Constellation, their focus is on web science, semantic web mostly, and brought together three really great professors. Jim Hendler is the lead, or is the Constellation chair, and then Deborah McGinnis and Peter Fox are also chairs of the Constellation. And I've worked with Peter Fox for about over 10 years now, I think, and focusing on data science, data management, provenance, knowledge provenance, um, and uh, lots of different scientific domains, solar terrestrial, ocean sciences, volcanology, and now this project, Deep Carbon Observatory. So we have students from Earth and Environmental Sciences, cognitive science, computer science, and information technology and web science. So those four different departments, we have students within the constellation. So it provides a really good mix of, yeah, here's a data science project, but here's some social scientists who are interested in how that maps to the social web and all that kind of good stuff. So
Very
that's what
cool.
a constellation is.
And you guys are in Troy, right?
Yes, RPI is in Troy. I work from Colorado.
Oh, really?
And I just to gloat a little bit here, it's in the mid 60s today and sunny and blue skies.
Well, I went to RPI in Troy, and I was just going to make a weather joke because it's 67 down here in Florida. But since you're out in Colorado and it's nice, I can't get you with the weather.
Nope, not me. Nope.
So Don and Mick that are on the call are also from Colorado. So how interesting. I'm sorry, Don. I
Oh,
always
hey
forget.
Don.
I forget the name of your organization. You're with the.
Laboratory of Atmospheric and Space Physics. We're part of University of Colorado.
Hey Don.
So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation, Patrick. I just don't think
That's okay.
people had heard about that before. Jim Hendler actually came and gave the keynote at the first VIVO conference, and it was pretty fantastic. You guys do a pretty great job up there.
Yeah, we have a lot of great projects, a lot of neat things that we're working on, and Deep Carbon Observatory is one of the big ones. I spend about 50% of my time on this project, Deep Carbon Observatory. So the presentation, it's going to start out as a presentation, just a little bit to
Okay, that's
give an
fine.
overview of what DCO is, Deep Carbon Observatory, and what we're doing with data science. And then I'll show some actual websites that are live and actually working, which
Cool.
is always a good thing. So Deep Carbon Observatory, DCO, it's, as the screen says, it's a global research program. We've got organizations from around the world, um, hundreds of organizations, thousands of scientists um, across many different domains, biologists, physicists, geoscientists, etc. It's a 10-year initiative, and what the Tetherless World Constellation is involved in is the public engagement piece of it and the data science piece of it, mostly data science. So we actually have, I love this screen, $50 million over 10 years. Not all of that going to the Tetherless World, although I wish. That would be kind of nice.
That would be
But
nice.
also, yeah, in addition to the 50 million, there's also seed funding for, oh, I forgot the term already. Uh, no, shoot, I can't remember now. It's border activities, and so we work with a handful of data science groups um, with specific science domains, and we work with them to create use cases and whatnot for data deposit, metadata, and things like that. And so with that, come on. Yes, there we go. So for the Deep Carbon Observatory data science, what we're doing and what I'm going to be presenting is the integration between a few different components. There's at the top, there's there's the main portal, which is in Drupal. And that's where the different teams collaborate, create pages, set up events, do all that kind of good stuff. So it's a content management system. And then from there, we integrate with VIVO, which is where a lot of the information is stored. All of the information will eventually be stored there. But also the actual data files, and we're talking about not just data sets, but documents, images, photos, you name it. And that's all going to be managed within CCAN, which is the integration point there is between VIVO and CCAN. Users won't actually see CCAN. It's an under the covers kind of integration, but users will definitely see Drupal and VIVO. So this is one of the slides we like to kind of show that there's lots of different science domains and lots of different tools and apps that are used to visualize the data, and all of that's going to be accessed through VIVO and CCAN. And lots of different data repositories. People don't have to store the data with DCO. There's a lot of different projects that already have the repositories set up and all that kind of good stuff, and it's up to us to mine a lot of that information, store it semantically within VIVO with all the back-end ontologies and all that. So we have different experiments, sensor streams from satellites and instruments up on mountaintops and in the oceans, etc. Lots of different models and whatnot. And again, it's all stored in different repositories, including DCO. So, for example, a new project coming on board, they don't really have a data management or data management plan in mind, so we can help them get set up with all that, and also provide them with a repository where they can actually store their data. So they don't have to come up immediately and provide funding for machines, servers, disks, all that kind of good stuff, and ways to archive and back up their data. All that kind of good stuff would be handled by the data science team. And behind it all is that robust information model, which we get a lot of from VIVO. So there's right here is the different pieces of data, which could be live databases, media, images, published data, documents, presentations, and of course data sets themselves, data files. And the data files can be in different formats: NetCDF, CDF, HDF5, etc., etc. But also we're keeping track of people, applications, different types of visualizations, the different organizations that are participating, the sub-organizations, and all that kind of good stuff. That's all being represented also. So it's all being linked together, linked open data, and a lot of that is being handled within VIVO again. But one of the big things that I'll point to eventually is this idea that everything gets a unique handle, and what we call the DCO ID. And we're talking people, organizations, software components, data sets, documents, everything gets a DCO ID. And here's another a more basic architectural overview. We've got the DCO Portal, which is a Drupal application using a MySQL database. DCO VIVO, which is using the RDF triple store, and VIVO is talking to CCAN, but everything is getting that DCO ID and integrated with a handle system. So you'd be able to take that handle and plug it into dx.handle.net or any other handle proxies and be able to get to that object. And the splash pages are all in VIVO. So when the handle resolves to a VIVO page. So with that, I'm going to switch over to the live site. Scared.
We'll all cross our fingers for it. We know how live demos are. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yay. And there we go. Let's see if we can't get this. I don't know how this looks on this big, massive screen.
Looks pretty good to me.
Okay, good. So this is the Drupal portal, and I'm already logged in. And the guy who did the theming on the Drupal this is just amazing. It doesn't look like a Drupal site to me, and I'm excited about that.
No, it doesn't. That's why I was kind of surprised.
So you've got different featured items down here. Here's the list of events, the Twitter feed, all that kind of good stuff. A lot of this is currently in the Drupal system, for example, events and documents, but that's all being migrated over to VIVO, and we're still in the process of doing all that. So these events will be represented in VIVO semantically. Right now, they're just content types within Drupal, so there's going to be a migration process. We're in the middle of that. So the way that users typically interact with the site is through their groups, and we're using organic groups. So here's my page, and here's my groups, and look, it's me. Anyway. So I'm going to go to the EPC, which stands for Extreme Physics and Chemistry. Oh, there it is. Extreme Physics and Chemistry. So it's one of the groups, what they call, they changed the name of it actually. So it is called a group now. It used to be something else, which didn't make any sense. So we had them change it, and I'm not even going to bring up the other thing now. So there's a lot of different yeah, so there's a lot of different information on this. It's just a means for this group to collaborate together. They can create content within Drupal, have discussions, share documents, and all that kind of good stuff. And there's two different parts of documents. There's documents that the group sees as relevant to the research they're doing, and that's typically not maintained within DCO or VIVO. It's the documents that are authored by DCO members that we're actually interested in keeping track of, assigning DCO IDs, and all that kind of good stuff. So right here where it says submit relevant content is where scientists would submit something. For example, that document or the graphic, a video, or anything like that. And we're going to go with a data set. And so now we're in VIVO. And so there's part of the integration is the actual submitting of information. And this process we're also still working on. Right now all we're requiring is a name, but we want to require a lot more information than that. A description of the data set, authors, where the data set is coming from, geospatial information, temporal information, all that kind of good stuff we're going to require on this field, on this screen. So it's not really that interesting right now, only in that, and I'm just going to do, oh, you can see I've already, I'm going to go ahead and just create a data set. And at this point, a data set isn't representing an actual uploaded file or anything like that. It's just representing that I have this data set, and the data set can have many different versions of the files and things like that. It's the distribution. Oh, and Don, you'll find this of interest. we've decided not to use the VSTO ontology. And we've gone with something that I think has just now become a W3C recommendation, and that's DCAT, which is Dataset Catalog Representation. And so they have this concept of a data set, and then when you actually want to upload a file, then you're starting to create a distribution. And so you can see right there that the distribution is part of DCAT. Did I actually click on that? No, I didn't. Okay. And hello. No, I want to create a new one. Oh, there we go. Okay. And again, all we're seeing right now is the name, and just type that in and go here. And so this is where we can start attaching the various. Oh, I got to click on that actually. So now we can actually start uploading files right here, adding descriptions, the different groups that are associated. And this is something else that we need to work on as well, is there's a lot of information within Drupal that we want to eventually get into VIVO automatically. And so the person clicked on that link within Drupal that says add a data set, and we want that information to be sent over to VIVO and added to that data set and distribution. So that we need to figure out how to do that automatically, so they're not having to add this information. And here is where we start getting the handle ID, the DCO ID. So everything is getting that handle. So I'm going to go to something that we've already filled in and have information for, and this is called noble gas isotope abundances in terrestrial fields or fluids. And I am not a scientist, and I have absolutely no idea what that means. I'm the data scientist, so that's all I know. So here's that handle, and this is something that we worked on earlier with some different folks, in that whenever we create something within VIVO, we want to go grab that DCO ID. And so we added code, and we were hoping for a callback of sorts, but there wasn't one. And so we coded it up. Whenever an object is created in VIVO, it calls a RESTful service on our servers that creates that DCO ID and pulls it back and populates the VIVO field, which is, there it is, the DCO ID down here.
So is that like the book equivalent of a DOI or a?
Yeah, it is really equivalent to that. It's a handle. It's this 11121 is our prefix, DCO.
Okay.
So we registered for that prefix, and then if you went to dx.deepcarbon.net, so if you went here and entered that DCO ID, hopefully it won't complain about the space. It'll eventually come back, or not.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about
There it
handles
is.
before, so that was
So that DCO ID resolved to the VIVO page for this data set.
very cool.
And
Question for you, Patrick.
sure.
I noticed that you have the DCO ID, which is its unique identifier with the 11214317, et cetera, but then VIVO still has its own unique URL. Have you thought about incorporating VIVO's unique identifier for the N6225 and merging that with your DCO ID?
Yes. So whenever you do Sparkle queries, whenever you do any of that, you're going against the URI. The reason we wanted to use the handles is because if the URI were to change, anything like that, that DCO ID is still available, and all we have to do is go in there and change the URI. The idea being that there might be organizations and data science groups, or science groups, I mean, that already have unique identifiers for their objects, URIs. And so we'd want to be able to say this resolves to this plus the one that we have for DCO. So it resolves to the URI that they already have in existence. It resolves to the VIVO splash page, basically, all through this handle. So that's one of the big things.
Thanks.
And so you can see here's the Deep Energy community, which is where I clicked. Well, it's one of the groups in Drupal, but at the moment we have to manually enter this. So we can go to the group page, the community page, and hey, there's a DCO ID for the community. And it shows awards, grants, all that kind of good stuff, different people within the organization, and somewhere there's the DCO ID. Somewhere in here there's the data set that I just showed you, but I can't find it now. So everything is being linked together with the different organizations. And also the author. So I click on the author, here's all the information using a lot of the different VIVO properties that are already in existence, FOF properties, here's the DCO ID for this person. So you could take that handle, type it into the handle proxy, and be able to get to this splash page. And so there's a lot of different information. So all of this is being represented in VIVO. Anything that we currently have in Drupal is being migrated over to Drupal. All the people have already been migrated over. And so account creation is happening in Drupal, but as soon as an account is created within Drupal, there's code, there's callbacks within Drupal that allow us to write code, and that code goes to VIVO and creates an equivalent person in VIVO. And the same with groups. One of the things we still have to do is creating policies within VIVO based on groups. Whenever someone is added to a group, there's a callback in Drupal that'll allow us to create or add the person to the policy in Drupal or in VIVO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of integration going on between Drupal and VIVO. So the other big thing that we're doing is visualizations. And this is a visualization within Drupal. And it's actually existing outside of Drupal. And this is an iframe within Drupal. And so right here we can see that there's, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's Igor.
Yep.
Just because I like Young Frankenstein. And so it has a lot of his information. This is all a Sparkle query against the VIVO Triple Store, and a lot of the visualizations that we're using right now are queries against the VIVO Triple Store. So we're pulling back all the different collaborator information from VIVO, mapping it on this the map of the world, and we're pulling back name and the URI in this case for Igor, the name and URI for the institution that he's a part of, and the DCO community. And so you can get back to that. Oh, that's right, that doesn't work. That can take you back to the VIVO page from the visualization. So that's one visualization. Another visualization that we have right now within Tetherless World Constellation, we have a faceted browser called S2S, and it started within the ocean science community. One of our PhD students was doing an internship, and so it's ship to something, I can't remember. It's an ocean sciences name, but anyway, all these facets. Yeah, that's it. Ship to shore. Thank you. So these facets on the left, you can expand on these. You can add additional facets from down here, and you can rearrange them also. But all the facets are being populated by queries against the VIVO Triple Store. And then this goal facet right here, this is the list of publications, by the way, within DCO. It's the one that we currently have implemented. We're also working on one for the data sets. So giving a bounding box, temporal information, instruments, parameters, anything like that, you'd be able to get the data sets on the right here. In this case, these are all publications, and these are all pages back to uh, VIVO. So there's the handles and all that kind of good stuff. And that just takes you all back to VIVO. And one final thing that I'm going to show, and we're coming up with a lot of different tools and utilities, which is part of the reason I'm presenting here, for how we can present all of our information. This again is within a Drupal page, but it's doing queries against the VIVO triple store. And so if I, hopefully, are you going to let me? Yes, you're going to let me. Yay. I love how Drupal does this. So each of those tables is being generated by what we call a sparkle tag. You can see right here. And so we have a module within Drupal that finds any sparkle tags within the body of a page and says, here's the query file I want you to use. There's a default endpoint that it's using, or you can specify an endpoint. Here's an XSL translation of the XML RDF that's returned, RDF XML. And then that translates that into HTML, which is what you see on the page. So there's 3 or 4 of those sparkle tags in the body of this page, and it generates the HTML for each of these tables, and that's all against the VIVO triple store. And so there would be one of these for each of the different groups that we saw.
What are you guys using for a Sparkle endpoint?
Just the default endpoint within VIVO is all we're using right now. And the only thing that I did is I opened it up so that anybody can do queries against the endpoint. Yeah.
Well, that's very cool, Patrick. Thank you very much for showing. I personally wrote down that I got to go check out dx.handle.net and S2S faceted browser, and also the DCAT ontology. That was pretty cool. I hadn't seen those before.
Yeah, we're just now starting to use DCAT. We were using VSTO, Virtual Solar Terrestrial Observatory, which I know Don was using. And we still are using some components of VSTO ontology, which is instruments, parameters, things like that. We're also integrating that with observations and measurements, and a group from Australia, from CSIRO, and I can't remember what that stands for, actually developed solar terrestrial observations and measurements. So it's a combination of VSTO, which was solar terrestrial in nature, the ontology, with observations and measurements, and so we'll be integrating that as well. So lots of different data science type ontologies within VIVO.
So, how did you find the the job of integrating Drupal and Vivo together? It sounds like you're still working on it.
Still working on it.
Is it a lot of like jobs running in the background that do the data migration overnight, or I mean, how are you doing the? You talked about account creation migration.
Right now, we go to the Drupal database, MySQL.
Mm-hmm.
We pull out the information that we want because they're all content types.
Right.
We pull out the information we want, and then we populate VIVO with that. So we come up with the migration plan, and we do the migration, and we're done. So like I said, we've already done people. All we need to do now is documents and events. Oh, and we already did organizations. So it's a one-time thing, and then
It's a one-time thing. Okay.
Yeah, and then we write the code within Drupal, the hooks, to whenever a person is added to the system in Drupal, we add them in VIVO.
That's awesome. So, are there any questions from the audience? I see a lot of people are muted. Thank you for muting, but now's a great time to ask Patrick any questions.
Patrick, Don again. Are you using Drupal then as your definitive authentication repository for users, or are you going to something else like LDAP?
We're working on that. It's eventually going to be single sign-on, but it's not going to be LDAP. It's going to be a single sign-on system. Um, right now, you have to log in to Drupal and a separate login to VIVO, but that will be integrated eventually.
Think you're going to go to SHIB?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Okay.
It's not the easiest to integrate with. Um, we tried that with DSpace and it didn't work, and it was a pain.
We're using Shib down here for both Drupal, WordPress, and Vivo. So it can be
Really?
done. It's not easy, but it can be done. Yep.
Huh, okay. Yeah, we just kicked off one of our students to tackle this problem.
Now
So
we have a
he's
separate
working on
group
it.
on campus that runs the IDP, the enterprise identifier provider, but so we don't run that part ourselves. But the endpoints we run, and that's what we've got hooked into Vivo and.
Yeah, I'm curious because it's organizations from all around the world. There's no one point to say, okay, pull this person's information from over there or over there. So we're kind of starting from scratch. So we'd have to set up the what do you call it? The
Identity
shibboleth
provider, the
servers.
IDP, yeah.
Yeah, identity providers. Yeah.
We're running into some of that ourselves because we're also providing access for at least one of our spacecraft to different facilities across the world. So we did pull in some of our data from LDAP from internal Active Directory, but then a lot of the other accounts had to be crafted from scratch. So curious where you end up.
Yeah, we actually had to down here in Florida. We had to create a business process around that where we get foreign people actual identities in our IDP. So there's a
Same
whole,
problem, right?
yeah, same problem. They got to have it. It's called a Gator Link account down here, and so if you're like we do multi-center clinical trials, so you have investigators from other universities that don't have single sign-on, and so we actually get them accounts in our Active Directory, and then they link up to our shibboleth, so they have an account to log in with.
Oh, so they're off all the way internal to your institution
Yep.
as like a person of interest.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. So for the Tetherless World website itself, where we manage all of our projects, and we've got like 25 current projects in the lab, it's all LDAP, and so we've set up LDAP groups, and you only have access to these pages if you're in this group, and you only have access to these machines if you're in this group. It's an undertaking. So that is one option. We could just create the DCO LDAP and use that. Um, I'd love to do that because that's what I know how to do. But I'll let the student do some exploration.
Any other questions for Patrick?
I saw that faceted circle window, S2S. You create your facets out of Sparkle, or you have any intention of using the Solar backend?
Where did I put it? Hello. Ah, there it is. So there's two different options for setting up the configuration. The one that I prefer to use is OpenSearch description documents. And so the OpenSearch description documents are read in by S2S, and RDF is generated to support the configuration. And also, all of the facets on the left, and even the goal facet, they're all being populated by RESTful service calls that are described in that open source description document. And it's those RESTful service calls that are actually doing the queries. So the top 3 facets could be queries against the VIVO endpoint, and then the 4th facet could be against a completely different endpoint. It's a possibility. I'm just throwing it out there. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, actually, so it seems like it's really mixed. So you could, for example, have that fourth facet come out of a Solr call if you want,
Exactly. Yeah.
since you're going through a REST service anyway.
Right.
Is this similar to ELDA?
It is very similar to ELDA. Yeah. In fact, we're using ELDA for a couple other projects. But the S2S is the one that we're using for most of our projects now. It needs to be prettied up, though.
Why did you make the switch?
The configuration for S2S is in a triple store. A lot of the information about the facets are in the triple store. You can get the facets, what are they called? The widgets. The widgets for all of these facets could be located elsewhere. So the idea is that you can go off, you can create a bunch of widgets that you want to use for S2S, and you can use those within here, or you can use some of the default ones that we have at RPI, which is where all 4 of these are coming from. Dco Demo at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, they came up with a few of their own widgets, including a map widget, and so they've developed that, and other people can start using those widgets if they want, if they were publicly available. So the infrastructure for S2S was ideal. It's open source, linked data, and all that kind of good stuff. All those buzzwords.
Well, very cool.
So, Patrick, this is John at Cornell. I would like to hear more about CCAN and how that, is there any way from CCAN to see across, is there any linkage back to VIVO if you're, or is CCAN purely a back-end repository?
CCAN for us, for our purposes, is completely back-end, under the covers. Nobody actually logs into CCAN to do any visualizations or anything like that. All the data access is handled by CCAN. CCAN can have data management plans involved and workflows, so you can integrate that in there, and it also can handle archiving. But all of that is happening under the covers. The DCO data science team at Tetherless World takes care of all of that.
And are you anticipating dealing with versioning? Well, I'm sure CCAN has some capability to do that, but are you going to then reflect that in VIVO with as people update data sets, or if there are data sets that are updated on a regular basis?
Yes, but the way we've decided to handle it is that every different version of a data set is its own entity. And through provenance, we can say that this is a replacement for that last version, and all of that good. It's provenance, and it's also the idea that there might be publications or presentations that are using that previous version, so we don't want to get rid of it or replace it. We still want it to exist.
And is the data set, you know, there are often a lot of different files that make up a single data set, or there may be metadata files in other formats that are associated with the data set. How do you handle that kind of lumping and grouping? Does everything get its own handle, or do you sort of have some package that gets a handle and that CCAN then manages the pieces of it under the covers?
Right, so DCAT provides for that. There's the concept of data set. And then within the data set, there's the concepts of distributions. And those distributions can have different files. So there's a lot of different groupings that you can use within DCAT.
Uh-huh.
And so there can be lots of different files within the distribution, and you can specify lots of different versions, all that kind of good stuff. And everything gets its own handle. Every distribution gets its own handle. Every data set gets its own handle. I'm not sure down to the file level if the files themselves get a new handle. I'm pretty sure they do, but I'd have to go verify that.
Uh-huh. And you say that the DCAT is now a W3C standard, because I'm aware of it as an, I think it was an XML. I'm not sure what, I forget where I'd seen it before, but I don't think it was RDF at the time. But
I just got an email either yesterday or today saying that it's a W3C recommendation, and one of the engineers that we have working at Tetherless World, John Erickson, is one of the authors. So I'm pretty sure that it's a recommendation now. Again, I'd have to go verify.
Okay, well, that's great.
Are you using DCAT in lieu of Bravo?
No. So Bravo is all provenance and can be used for anything. So even versioning of organizations, we could use provenance if we wanted to. DCAT is a representation of data sets and distributions and different information about how the data came about. Here's a sensor. It was on this instrument in this region. All that. And then provenance is more of this data set is derived from this data set, is derived from this data set, these things happened to it, this piece of software ran to generate this visualization, and each of those different components would be entities or possibly DCAT data sets. And so a DCAT data set could be considered a prov entity. So they work in collaboration.
Patrick, are you going to publish any of your the ontological work that you guys are doing?
We have 2 publications that we're working on right now for different projects, not DCO. But eventually, sometime early this year, we're going to work on a couple publications for DCO itself. We've done a lot of presentations, for example, at AGU, the American Geophysical Union conference in San Francisco, the Earth Science Information Partners, ESIP, just had a winter meeting, and last summer. So there's been lots of different presentations, but not necessarily journal articles and things like that, but soon.
Are you finding there's much awareness of VIVO in the earth science community, or is it kind of a new and of semantic technologies in general, or is it kind of new to that community?
Well, we've been pushing semantic technologies since 2008. And it's slowly getting into the data sciences, and we're trying to engage the actual science communities to say, here's the semantic web, linked data, this is what you're going to get out of it. It's going to be a great way of discovering and browsing through all the information that you have, finding data sets that you wouldn't have thought that you would have found related to your work, things like that. And so it's growing. It's getting out there, and there's more people who are interested in VIVO. We have a potential meeting at NCAR coming up, hopefully in the next few weeks, where we're going to talk about VIVO.
Yeah, they're quite aware of. NCAR is quite aware of VIVO. I think they're looking for a project that will enable them to really implement it. I think they've done a few pilots, but.
And of course, there's LASP and the University of Colorado. So there's lots of data science organizations that are starting to see VIVO, see what it's capable of, and use it.
Well, it's
Oh, and
really
Patrick, you're going to do Bessic tomorrow, right?
I will be at Bessic tomorrow, the Boulder ESSI group. I'll give a presentation, and actually I'll give a presentation on Thursday to the VIVO Telecon also. So you might hear duplication.
Well,
For
thank you for
anybody who's
coming
on
on
that
this
call as
call,
well.
then. We appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure.
Sounds like a
Thanks
busy guy.
for
So,
letting me do
so
this.
you and Don know each other already. I didn't need to introduce you two.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when I was there. It was, I think, maybe 2 summers ago. I can't remember.
I had a quick question. This may be kind of a boring question, but was that Google Maps that you were integrated with? And I liked how it looked like you were linking back to their Vivo profiles.
Yeah, this is Google Maps, and I'm not exactly how they did this. One of our students did this, but you can do queries against something, and we chose the Sparkle queries against the endpoint, the Vivo endpoint, to pull back all of this information.
Are you getting a lot of use out of the maps? I mean, we've thought about putting maps up, but I was wondering if it was a lot of work for nothing. I mean, they look nice, but is anybody ever going to use them?
It's great for reporting purposes. So when the National Science Foundation comes along and says, "Hey, what you doing?" They want to see collaboration, they want to see documents, they want to see publications, they want to see all of the stuff that comes out of the research. And so when they come to this map and they see that we're doing collaborations from all around the world, they like that.
Very good point. We need more geographic maps in Vivo, John.
well, they're in 1.6. There's the whole front page has got a map interface that can be configured to pull in what you want. Right now, I think it's set to pull in research areas, but
Cool. I haven't seen that yet.
There's some real simple JavaScript map tools like Simile Exhibit from MIT that you can use right off the cuff, and it just takes some JSON feeds.
Simile exhibit. I have to write that down.
Yeah, it was kind of made for people that don't really want to get into JavaScript details. And you could do, I think right off the bat, it does faceted search where you can narrow down things on a map or a table or a timeline that you're interested in.
That's pretty cool. We think we figured out a way to, we'll see here. We think we figured out a way at Florida to finally actually physically put people in a geographic location in their office. We might be able to link up we might be able to link up their phone number with a phone catalog that knows the port of knows the actual office and location of every port that every phone is plugged into.
Wow.
So that's something we're going to work on in the spring because we want to be able to do a map, and say, look, here's people working together and here's where they are. So
yeah, Griffin Weber has done that quite successfully with Harvard Profiles because they're spread all over the Boston area. And they sometimes find people working in the same thing in the same building that's some rented building out in the suburbs that they had no idea, there was another Harvard person in the same building. And you guys have a big group up in Jacksonville, right? So that
yep, and now in one in Orlando too.
uh-huh.
So trying to connect them up. Well, Patrick, I can't say thank you enough for giving us a presentation. I really appreciate it, and I'd love it if you'd come back every now and then if you have a chance and talk to us as you start expanding Vivo.
Yeah, I'll definitely try and be on these calls more often. It's the beginning of a new semester, so we're working out schedules and meeting times for everything. So
Well,
I'll be
thank
sure to
you.
block this one off.
Really love to have someone from your project come to the implementation fest at Duke in March because I think it's really important to have people who are working on just sort of typical Vivo installations understand how it can work for how they can repurpose that data for a lot of other applications. And and I think they'd learn a lot, and I think it hopefully would be useful for your project as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say that having Don and Patrick on this call gives us a fresh look. I mean, we've been wrapped up in the same kind of environment for so long. It's nice to have people from a different discipline come in and talk about how they're using VIVO, because it gives us kind of a fresh view on what can be done. And you guys have new ideas that we haven't heard before. So
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
already
a
put
lot of
in my
people.
request to go.
awesome.
Mhm.
So in the few minutes we have left, I guess one of the things I wanted to ask was, I know that Tuesdays are not good for Colorado, but what I was wondering was how Tuesdays are for um, everybody else. Or is this still a good day? Is it not a good day? Does anybody have any opinion?
Well, the people that can make it on Tuesday are probably here, so
Well, I've been trying to get Don and Mick on this call for a while,
Excuse me. Go to meeting.
Okay, um,
Sorry about
for
that.
a while, and it looks like those days. I'm thinking about changing to Wednesdays. I'm trying not to do Thursdays, Don, because the Thursday calls are weekly for the main Vivo developer call, so I wouldn't want to overload Thursday. But I could definitely think about Wednesday. Would Wednesdays be better for you guys?
Yeah, for us, Wednesday won't work for us because Mick's the lead developer on it, and he's not here Wednesday.
Oh, he's not here on Wednesday.
Well, he's doing bigger and better things.
Gotcha. Well, we're definitely going to keep Tuesdays for the next couple calls, because I did plan out the next two calls. Mick, would you be able to do maybe 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now for your presentation?
Sure, yeah, that works. As long as it's any time during the day, Tuesday or Thursday in the next few weeks, I'll be available.
How about 2 weeks from today?
Yeah, sure, let's do it.
So that's February 4th,
Okay,
1 o'clock Eastern.
sounds good.
I got you down. It's in the meeting notes now. You can't take it back.
Deal.
I'll leave you my laptop.
Some of the other exciting things. I'm working on I'm hoping I can get a meeting together with Ted and some other guys to work on a survey for the hackathon. I'm hoping to get it out in the next couple of weeks, just to kind of get an idea of what people might be interested in for the hackathon. So I know I was supposed to have that done by now, but I haven't. So we'll get that going. The other thing is coming up, I'm going to have probably another presentation for Mike Conlon. He's written a couple of interesting tools. He wrote a BioSketch and CV generation tool in Python, which can churn out even the biggest profiles we have in under 2 minutes, which has been an accomplishment because we have some very large profiles that don't finish with the current DV Docs implementation. So this should be a speed improvement. Also, he's written a tool that will go through and generate the RDF to fix broken links in any URLs that are in Vivo, meaning if somebody put in their website and the link is actually broken, this link checker will go and check that the website is still available, and if it's not, it'll generate RDF to remove it. So just some more interesting little tidbitty kind of tools to try and help improve your Vivo data quality. Nicholas Rejak, at some point in the next month or two, has made some improvements to our automated data checker, which basically lets you write Sparkle queries and then drop them into a folder, and then it'll run those Sparkle queries and email you a report on whether or not they return results. We usually use it for checking for duplicates or checking for missing authors or missing, any kind of missing inferences or connections. So he's made some improvements to that he wants to talk about. That's about all the announcements I have, unless anybody's got any other new business. It's good to see John is back safely. I'm guessing you're back in the U.S., John?
Yeah, I'm still on New Zealand time, but it's good to be back.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming, and we'll see you again hopefully February 4th. 2014, 1 p.m. Eastern.
Thanks for organizing, and thanks for the presentation, Patrick.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks again to Patrick West.